And I think a team like the Pacers look at Victor Oladipo, who right now is in a contract year, and say, how much are we willing to pay this guy? Hello and welcome to the Monday, January 4th edition of the TV and Basketball Podcast with your host, TV. Hope your day is going excellent, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other fantastic content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you haven't already. That would be very much appreciated. And if you're for all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you are on Apple. As for Spotify, Anchor, and Podbean listeners, continue to show your support in whatever way you can. Quick disclaimer before we get into this to the preview of today's episode. If you have any reviews that you left on on my podcast and stuff, please feel free to DM me on Instagram, send me a message on Twitter, all that good stuff. Because I don't get to see the US reviews because I am in Canada. So if you did leave a review and show your support, send them my way. I will definitely give you a shout out. But yeah, we have a great show lineup for you today. We're going to be definitely talking about Steph's 62-point game, which will probably be the first topic in today. I'm going to be talking about just giving some bold predictions for this new year, this new calendar year. And obviously, we're going to end things off with the power rankings and my game of the week. But yeah, with that out the way, sit back, relax, and let's jump into the first topic. And like I said, we're going to be starting off with the Golden State Warriors. We're going to be starting off with Steph Curry. Steph Curry dropped a career high 62 points last night as the Warriors take down the Trailblazers. His previous career high was 54 points. I do remember that game quite clearly. And Steph eclipsed it. He even eclipsed his teammate Klay Thompson's record of 61. But this was unlike, Steph's other big games. He was great from three. 8 for 16, he was absolutely phenomenal. But this is a type of game where he scored on all facets. And this is basically just emblematic for me of the Warriors situation right now, where Steph needs to do so much on the offensive end, and he just has all kind of this offensive load on him that let's be honest, he hasn't had before, because he has players like Klay Thompson by his side, because he had players like Kevin Durant. This is kind of like his first year as the best point guard in the league, where he's gonna have to carry most of the offensive load. And because this season, people like Kelly Oubre, who hasn't been, good at all. So far, he's hit 2 out of 26 threes this season. Andrew Wiggins, who, to be fair, hasn't picking up lately, but he hasn't also been good. This win was 137-122 for the Golden State Warriors. And this is basically everyone's best game. Wiggins, 21 points. Maybe he had a better game. I think he scored 28 earlier. But Kelly Oubre had his best game. James Wiseman, not his best game, but he definitely had a good one as well. Eric Pascal had 10 points. He was abusing Cantor. And this just felt like, Steph finally getting to his groove, finally hitting that stride. And like I said, he took what the defense gave him. Because you can even tell in his stats, this is his career high in free throw attempts. He never had this many free throws before. I believe his previous career high was 14. Today he went to the free throw line 19 times. And throughout this game, this wasn't like a one quarter explosion. This happened just basically throughout the game. 31 in the first half, 31 in the second half. It was just a really fun game to watch. And if you have time in your day, I urge you to check out the highlights, because that was a fun ride. That was definitely a fun ride. Especially that last three, where everyone in the building, everyone at home, we were like, where's Steph? Where the heck is Steph? I don't think Draymond Green looked back. He kind of just knew that Steph was going to end up right next to him. So he just handed the ball off to him and hit a crazy, crazy, crazy three. And I just found that to be absolutely amazing. And, Steph Curry just did this, honestly, to shut a lot of people up. Because a lot of people were starting to doubt, oh, is he a great leader? Is he going to do enough to lead this team to the playoffs or anything further than that? Well, he showed that he is still the best point guard in the league. And if you have anyone in front of him, I mean, it is your opinion. I cannot hate you on that, but you're gonna find it very hard to convince me otherwise that Steph isn't. He's just that good. Steph can just go off on these like little run, like his own like mini run, and you could tell in that game. And at some points he was just unstoppable. He was just unstoppable, and you could tell like first like I was like were there a lot of people hating? And yes, there were a lot of people hating because the Warriors went off to a really bad start, and Steph, obviously being the top guy there, was a lot to blame because people were like, "Oh, he hasn't had to deal with what Westbrook had to deal with in the past, what LeBron had to deal with in the past, carrying these bum teams." Well, Steph finally had his breakout game with this so-called bum team, and like I said, this guy just went out and kind of had to remind everyone, he is the best point guard in the league, and like I said, like I don't think anyone really comes close, really, in terms of Steph Curry's just his play from the point guard position. It really doesn't even come close. Shout out to Draymond Green in this game as well for only having 1 point, but I'm not gonna hate because he was absolutely phenomenal in this game, especially on the defensive end, especially bringing that energy. He was just phenomenal. He was just absolutely phenomenal, and I think this could be the start of something good for the Warriors. Hopefully, Wiggins finds some consistency in his game. Kelly Oubre can maybe hit better than 1 of 5 threes yesterday, or just like 2 for 26 on the season. But a really good win, and Steph, there goes that man, as Mark Jackson likes to say on the call. But that was a crazy game. I urge you to check out Steph's highlights. They're just super fun to watch. Let's move on to this. We're gonna go from one team in the West to another team in the West, and I'm gonna be talking about the Houston Rockets. They got a win over the weekend without James Harden, who had a sprained right ankle, and they look good. And it's not like they're facing a bum team. They're facing the Sacramento Kings, who have had a good start to the season. But they've looked good. They definitely have looked good. John Wall in his first 2 games with the Houston Rockets is averaging right now 25, 7, and 25 points, almost 8 assists, 5 rebounds. And it's looking really good because a lot of people looking at John Wall coming into the season is, look, 2 surgeries over the last 2 years. Will he be that kind of same player as he was pre-injury? Because pre-injury, John Wall was a top 3 point guard in this league. People tend to forget about that. Some people even made the argument, even though I really didn't agree with it, that he was better than Steph in 2017. Like people made that argument, and they had a good argument because John Wall was one of the most athletic point guards in the league, one of the best playmakers in the league. I know he led the league in assists a few times, and he could bring it on the defensive end as well because he's just so damn athletic. And people, and rightfully so, including myself, were like, is he going to have that same athleticism coming into this year? Because there have been reports saying that John Wall has looked better than ever and stuff like that. But there's just reports. We are waiting to see it on the court. And he has done that so far. He has definitely done it over the first 2 games. And even in that win without James Harden, he looked like, Washington Wizards John Wall pre-injury. And that is just extremely good to see, the Rockets are finally getting their players back. Eric Gordon back from back from the COVID protocol. DeMarcus Cousins. The Rockets, even if they trade James Harden, because let's be honest, they're going to get some assets back, they could still be a good team. Now we got to talk about someone else on this Rockets team, because this guy has surprised a lot of people this year, but knowing what he did last year, after Arthur Drummond got traded, I just knew that this guy was in for a pretty good season. But even he's exceeding my expectations. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, I'll talk about Christian Wood, because so far this season, this guy's averaging 24 and 11 on 50% from the field. Sorry, 56% from the field. And like I said, but last year in the Pistons, he was averaging 20 and 12 after Andre Drummond got traded. So you got a glimpse. Not a lot of people are going to be paying attention to Detroit Pistons basketball, but he was a baller. He was definitely a baller, and I mentioned throughout the season, throughout the off season, if you're gonna give someone like a Jeremy Grant 3 years, whatever, I think it was 4 years, $80 million. I might be wrong about that. You gave Mason Plumlee 3 years, almost $30 million. You have the money to offer Christian Wood, over $20 million a year. But the Pistons didn't do that, and the Rockets, even still, like right now, that like this 3 year, $41 million contract for Christian Wood is looking really good right now, because he's playing phenomenal. He is absolutely playing phenomenal. He is playing at an at an All Star level, borderline All NBA level at the moment. I mean, I know it's only been what 4 games for the Rockets so far, but he's looked absolutely fantastic. And this is like him, not just getting it, um, just like getting it through lobs, which they've been throwing a lot to him. They've been going to him in the post. He has a little jump shot to him, and he's working hard on the defensive end. 2.2 blocks, 1 steal. He's doing it all, and I'm just glad people are getting to see this now, because he is a very good player, and you just gotta love his story. I mean, he was undrafted on draft night. He his girlfriend broke up with him after he got undrafted. I mean, that's already a double whammy for sure. Because imagine working your whole life to get to this one point, and no team wants to take a chance on you, not a single team. And then right after that, your girlfriend, because he's like, ugh, do I want to stay with this guy? Nah, I'm gonna break up with him. And then he goes out, stays in the G a little bit. I believe he was on the 76ers as well. Finally finds a role in Detroit, excels in that role, gets the bag, and now he is playing at a very high level. You just gotta love it, man. You just gotta love it. And just looking at this team as a whole, I mean, if John Wall can continue his All Star form, if Christian Wood can continue to play at borderline All Star level, and if somehow Harden was like, what, I'm committed to this team, let's do this, I think this team could be pretty scary. I really do think so, because with Harden being a very good playmaker, John Wall, Christian Wood's gonna be there at the rim. I think this is like not only a playoff team, but I think this is possibly one of the best teams Harden has had in terms of talent, and that's scary. That's scary, but it all really depends on if Harden still wants to leave and all that. But this Rockets team, with or without Harden, I mean, like I said, if they're gonna if they're gonna trade Harden away, they're gonna get some assets back, and I still think that the Rockets will still be competing, which is a good thing, which is a really good thing. So hopefully they continue this play, and you know, let's just hope that we can like see more of this, because they've been extremely fun to watch. Let's go to the East now, because I wanted to like talk about this team for a while. I mentioned them quickly on the last episode with Philly Sports Era. If you haven't checked that out, check out my link tree. Check out this YouTube channel. You can find it. It's the last video before this one. And I want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, because I talked about how, just in that episode, how good the Sexton nickname was. And it's fantastic. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, we look at the Splash Brothers, like, it was just meant to be, I mean, two of probably the greatest shooters of all time on one team. It's only right to call them the Splash Brothers. But Sexton, I mean, Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Sexton, I mean, again, just meant to be. It's just a perfect nickname. And right now, they're playing really well, starting off the season 4-2. And one of the players I'm definitely very impressed with is Colin Sexton, because so far this season, averaging 26, basically 4-2, he's looking like, that he could be a future All-Star. And this was kind of carried over from last year. I mean, he started off the season slow, but he definitely started to pick it up near the end of the season, where I believe like in his last 20 games was averaging, over 22 points. Very, very similar stats to what he's doing right now. And he just felt like he has this like new confidence in him. I mean, like, people like myself were doubting the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, I didn't kind of like their outlook going into the future. But so far this season, it's looking really good. I mean, Andre Drummond is helping out, on the board, 17 points, 14 rebounds this year for the Big Penguin. And like I said, Darius Garland, beside Colin Sexton, is finally kind of transitioning into that point guard role, which they need, because, they do not have a lot of playmaking, and that was one of my criticisms coming into this year. Colin Sexton and Darius Garland just didn't look like, true point guards. I felt like it's a very similar situation to the Chicago Bulls, where they have Kobe White and Zach LaVine. None of them true playmakers, but someone's going to have to play make. And hopefully Darius Garland could be that guy and kind of transition to the point guard role, because I really do think that although Colin Sexton is kind of shorter than most two guards, I think that would probably be his best bet to do really well. I mean, he's only 6'1", but I think that's probably his best bet, to succeed in this league. And if Darius Garland can, average, 18 points a game, 7 assists, I think that's pretty good, because you still have, good assist guys, and Larry Nance, who's been doing really good this year and stuff like that. But if you can transition Darius Garland into that point guard position, I think it can work out really well for this team. And like I said, I don't know if this is gonna last this run by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Probably not, just because they're a very inexperienced team with you know not much proven talent. But it's been a good start this year, and like I said in the past, as long as you're giving these fans hope, that's all you gotta really ask for at this point. So, the Cavs, I'm starting to like what I'm seeing over there from them. Let's see if they're gonna be able to keep it up, because I've been a fan of watching Colin Sexton over this during this season so far. I mean, he hit that game winner in their last game versus the Atlanta Hawks. Basically, I mean, he closed out the game there. So yeah, good win so far for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now it's all about them trying to find that consistency. Now, before we get into our bold predictions, we do have one more topic to discuss here. And this is kind of off the basketball court, because Shaquille O'Neal, yes, Shaq, we already know, he is one of the best big men of all time. I have him in my top 10 greatest players of all time. But there's one thing I really don't like about Shaq is how he likes to comment on today's game. He says a lot of these players are stuff, and that he's like one of those guys, he's one of those old heads who like to bash on today's game and, say that, oh, this game 20 years ago, 30 years ago is a lot better than it is now. And yeah, that's just something to, that he's been doing a lot, especially post-career. And honestly, it's irritated me and it's irritated a lot of NBA fans. And he got back in the news this weekend because on a podcast, he was talking about Rudy Gobert. And he basically said on the episode that, young kids should be looking at Rudy Gobert as influential because he averages 11 a game and gets $200 million. In reference to Gobert's basically near supermax deal that he got a couple weeks ago. And look, like I said, he's done this to a lot of modern bigs, aka Dwight Howard. He's talked about, people like DeMarcus Cousins in the past. And honestly, like I said, I'm just getting kind of sick of it. I mean, I'm not a fan of the contract still with Rudy Gobert. I already expressed my thoughts on that. I mean, if you're giving $200 million to someone, I would like them to do a bit more in the offensive end and not really be kind of one-sided um, in terms of, his skill. But I understand. I mean, in my opinion, the Jazz's most important player is Rudy Gobert. He's the reason, he's kind of the biggest reason why they do make the playoffs and why their defense is always, top 10, top 5 in the league. But this is just another case of Shaq, disrespecting today's game. It really is. I mean, Rudy Gobert, although he doesn't have the skill as those of a Shaq, as those of a DeMarcus Cousins, of those as a Karl Anthony Towns, that can go on and on, his impact is just as big as there, if not more, on the Utah Jazz. And in terms of just the NBA in general, I mean, this game's today is just more skilled, and it's just continuing to evolve. And I think people like Shaq, these legends. I mean, respect to them and all that, but they gotta show respect to these young guys. You gotta respect today's game, because it's just gonna keep evolving and evolving. And if you kind of just keep yourself in the past, it's just you're gonna fall behind. And that's all it is. And the NBA game is just gonna continue to evolve. And if these guys are gonna continue to say, "Oh, it's better back then," you're, this game, you're just not doing the game any favors. So, just respect them. Rudy Gobert, continue to do his thing. And although, like I said, I do not agree with the contract, his impact is undeniable. I still think that Donovan Mitchell is still probably the most talented player on that team, but Rudy Gobert is the most impactful and probably the most important, especially when it comes to their success. So, yeah, not a huge fan on Shaq's comments, but hopefully he'll come around soon. But it just kind of irritates me, especially when these old heads just talk about how the game was better 20 years ago and stuff. And you just kind of, I'm not saying you gotta completely like everything about today's game, but you just gotta show it more respect. That's all I'm asking. So let's move on to this, because like I said before the show, we're gonna be making some bold predictions. I mean, Happy New Year again. I mean, I'm recording this on the morning of January 4th. And this is my first time basically recording this year. So feeling good about this new year. And I'm feeling good about the NBA right now. So as we come to the new year, I'm going to make some bold predictions for the 2021, calendar year in the NBA. Like I said, we have 5 predictions. A lot of it has to do with this season, if not all of it. But I think that these are things that not a lot of people are going to be predicting, but I think it's going to be that I think might happen. Are they kind of realistic? Maybe, maybe not. But I definitely I think they are real possibilities. So let's go into this. We're going to start off with my first bold prediction, and I'm going to say that the Pelicans will make the playoffs this year. Not a play-in seed, the playoffs, so a top 8 seed, and Brandon Ingram is going to make All NBA second team. They're looking like a scary bunch right now, and before the season, including myself, people were looking at Zion to take the next step, to assume the reins of the New Orleans Pelicans organization. But, and I'm not saying that Zion hasn't been playing well. I mean, he has been playing very well so far this year. He's been averaging, 19 points a game, 8 rebounds. And the only problem really I've been seeing with Zion is that he just really can't stay on the floor because of foul trouble. If he can if he can fix that, he'll definitely be, touching that 23 point per game mark and maybe near 10 rebounds a game. So if he can fix that, he could do like a lot more, I think, and have a bigger impact on the game. What the story for this season should be so far is Brandon Ingram just taking that next step. Because we know what he did last year. He was most improved, averaging 23 points a game and all that. But this year he has kind of taken his game to the next level and just added, layers to his game. He's looked better defensively, and he's still averaging, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. And he's just having that better just all around game, which I'm loving right now. And with this team, playing the way it is, I mean, Lonzo Ball shooting the 3 ball, not particularly well, but he's definitely hitting his shots and actually having a pretty good season, especially on the defensive end. Eric Bledsoe giving them some 3-point shooting and stuff like that. And they're just getting a good contributions from everywhere, basically. And I'm just liking the way that they're playing. I can imagine even someone like Brandon Ingram, if he continues up his play, he will be in the, those top 20, top 15 players in the league discussions. And especially if they make the playoffs, I can see him making, the all NBA second team and stuff like that. That's just the way it's kind of like projecting to me right now because they're playing at a pretty high level. They're doing this against, pretty good teams as well. The Toronto Raptors, they got a good win against. They got, they beat them twice, and they, beat a pretty solid team in the Spurs this year as well. So, pretty good start to the season for them. And I honestly think that, making the playoffs is definitely not out of the question. That's my bold prediction. And also, like, tying into that, Brandon Ingram having another All-Star type year and making All-NBA second team. Let's move on to my second bold prediction. And we're staying in the West. And I'm going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns. And I think that they're going to be getting the 4th seed this year in the West. Because when I told you like a couple weeks ago that they felt different, I meant it. I really do. Even in last night's game against the LA Clippers, where they lost, I believe by 4. They did. I think they lost by 4 last night, by 5, 112-107 against the LA Clippers. But they were down big. They were definitely down big, and they were making that run, especially in that third and fourth quarter. It's because the Clippers had like a 31-point lead throughout this game. They had a 20-point lead at halftime, and they almost blew it. And the Phoenix Suns look composed. They look, they're playing at a high level. And the Phoenix Suns have just been looking really good this year. And no one has really been spectacular. I mean, DeAndre Ayton has gone up to a slow start. I think he's averaging like 12 points a game, 7 rebounds. Devin Booker hasn't even been fantastic. He's only averaging over 20 points a game. But it's just a good all-around team effort, and you can just tell the culture has changed. Like I said, Chris Paul, one of the best playmakers of all time, one of the best point guards of all time, is showing why whatever team you put on that he goes on, they're going to get significantly better than what a lot of people suggest. So, imagine if Devin Booker gets back to his 24-point per game scoring effort, if DeAndre Ayton can get his game going throughout the season, the sky's the limit for these Phoenix Suns. And although I said before the season maybe they might be dark horse finals contenders, I think that's kind of a bit too far. But I think they can compete for home court advantage. I really do. And You know, the way that they're playing, especially on both ends of the ball, they're eighth in offensive rating so far, second in defensive rating, which is very different for Phoenix Suns type team. So the way that they're playing right now, I can see them making the 14, and I think that's another bold prediction I'm going to make, just because they've looked really good, and Chris Paul, running the point has definitely changed this team up. So my second bold prediction, I have the Phoenix Suns finishing in the 14 this year. My next bold prediction I'm going to have here is the Denver Nuggets, and I think that they're going to be trading for Victor Oladipo. They had a really good win last night, the Denver Nuggets against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and what I really liked about that was Jamal Murray finally had, that fantastic game that we were all waiting for him to have. 36 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists on 13 for 20 shooting. It was a very good game for Jamal Murray. And he's kind of struggled, especially early on, and the Denver Nuggets in general just have struggled just because they can't stop anyone. So far this year, I think before yesterday's game, they were like 30th in defensive rating, which is absolutely horrible. But they've kind of improved to 29th after last night's game. But still, when you lose players out like Jeremy Grant, when you lose players like Mason Plumlee, who are, they're good defensive players, even though the Nuggets were never really a top 10 defense. They kind of kept them average. But if you lose those two, this is kind of the situation with the Trailblazers last year, losing Al-Farouq Aminu, losing Mo Harkless and all them. Their defense just gets significantly worse, and that's what I see what's happening with the Denver Nuggets right now. So, trading for Victor Oladipo, I'm not sure if it's gonna vault them up, to like top 10 status, but it'll definitely help. It'll definitely help, and I think a team like the Pacers look at Victor Oladipo, who right now is in a contract year, and say, how much are we willing to pay this guy? Because Victor Oladipo, I think in his head, is still thinking he's worth the max, and I think the Pacers will be very hesitant to give it to him. So maybe he might be available on the trade market come February. Who knows? And with the Nuggets, they have the assets. They have a plethora of guards they could kind of trade away. Having people like Gary Harris, having people like PJ Dozier, who else? Well, Barton and stuff like that. They have a lot of just assets, especially at the guard position, which they will be able to trade away, and maybe even throw in someone like a Bol as well to kind of sweeten the pot. Because I think they can get this trade done to get Victor Oladipo, a former All-Star, former All-NBA, just to add to the team, especially beside Jamal Murray. I think it would be a perfect combination. And I think, this trade could definitely happen. I mean, the trade deadline is what, I think mid-March this year. So it could definitely happen. And like I said, the Nuggets have the assets, and the Indiana Pacers definitely are hesitant in giving Victor Oladipo the max. When you have those two factors coming in together, I think a trade could be working. And if the Nuggets especially, do not get exponentially better, I really think that they're going to be trying to look for a trade. And I think Oladipo would be perfect for them. So that would be my third bold prediction. My fourth bold prediction I have for this upcoming NBA year is that I think the 76ers will make the conference finals. And a lot of this has to just have to do with fit, because I like this team at the moment a lot. I think they're ahead of Boston in terms of, teams in the East right now. And I think they're just slightly behind Milwaukee. I know the Brooklyn Nets have struggled so far, but I still have them as the most dangerous team in the East. But they addressed their needs in the offseason. They got the shooting. They changed the coaching. They changed the front office. And they're producing on both sides of the ball, which I really do like. Joel Embiid is looking like a top center again this year. He's playing absolutely phenomenal. Ben Simmons, my thoughts on him. He's still producing the same stats, but he is a monster in the defensive end. He is an absolute monster. And you can really make the argument for him right now that he is the defensive player of the year. And I think that right now, with the way the team's construction, I just like their fit better than Boston at the moment. I really do. And you mix that in with them being comfortable in their position right now, I think that they can definitely make some noise in the playoffs. Now the only question is if they can stay healthy, because Ben Simmons' injury history, Joel Embiid's injury history. History tells us that they're not going to play the full 72 games. They're just not. But if they can stay healthy, they can make this work. I I really do believe that they're going to be, in the mix for, dark horse finals contenders. But with my prediction for them this year, is they're going to shock a lot of people and make the conference finals. Against who? Maybe Milwaukee, maybe Boston, maybe Brooklyn, but I think they might make the conference finals. I really do. Now we're going to go to my final bowl prediction, and this one, maybe not as like something you guys are thinking of, but I think that this is something that could possibly happen because of what happened over the weekend. I believe that the Sacramento Kings will trade former second overall pick Marvin Bagley III to Oklahoma City Thunder for some picks and Al Horford. The Kings would have to throw in some other players as well, but I think that trade is definitely on the table. And a lot of this stems from Marvin Bagley's dad's tweet from over the weekend saying, dear Sacramento Kings, please trade my son, whatever, whatever, because he hasn't really been getting the minutes so far this year, and a lot of the Kings' success, can be poured towards people like Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, De'Aaron Fox, obviously, and Marvin Bagley's getting pushed aside. Having an okay season so far, 12 points a game, 8 rebounds, pretty bad shooting percentages at 38%, but I still think, he could be a really good player. There's a reason why the Kings took him number 2, and so far, in his NBA career, he has to deal with a lot of injuries, and so it's been kind of rough for him. But I think, trading him when he still has value, especially with these other players on to come up, I think wouldn't be a bad decision for the Sacramento Kings. And I'm looking at OKC here because I think Al Horford should be on a team whose purpose is to kind of win now, and I think that's what the Kings kind of have to do. Marvin Bagley still has a bunch of potential. I understand that, but right now, when you have already your rising stars and De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, who could be the future of your backcourt, I think trading away someone like Marvin Bagley for a player like Al Horford, and obviously his contract is bad and stuff, but the Kings are not going to sign people through free agency. They're just not. So trading for someone like Al Horford who can help them right here, right now, I think could be the difference between them making the playoffs or a play-in seed or not. And trading away Marvin Bagley, especially to OKC Thunder, where they have a treasury of picks. They have a treasure box of 20-something first-round picks over the next 6 years. They have a bunch, and I think that the Kings could get a few of them out of OKC. And I think OKC's will be willing to take it. I mean, obviously getting rid of the Al Horford contract is a W in a lot of these scenarios. But bringing in someone like a Marvin Bagley, to help build that young core with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, and all them, I think could be really good for them. So I think this is a trade that could possibly happen. And I think both sides could see, the advantages and disadvantages of each. So, yeah, I know this is not as big of a name, but I think having a second overall pick as part of your young core for the Thunder would be really good. And Al Horford on the Kings, would be honestly a good fit. Would just be a good fit. Well, yeah, those are my bold predictions. Leave it down in the comment section whether you agree or disagree. And, leave your bold predictions in the comments of this, about shoot me a DM and all that. Obviously, I'd like to talk about that stuff. And, yeah, I think this is going to be a really good NBA season. I mean, so far it's gone off to a crazy start. Let's hope they can keep this up. So we're moving on now to the end portion of the show, and obviously we're going to end off on Monday with the power rankings, TV's power rankings, and the game of the week. We're going to start off with the power rankings, so let's get right into it. 2 teams have dropped from my power rankings this week, and that is the Miami Heat, who were at 5 last week, taking dropping off my board, and the Denver Nuggets, sadly. So 2 new teams coming in. Let's get right into these power rankings. At number 10, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. Right now, they sit in the league 4-2, and they've been pretty good so far, being led by Brandon Ingram, getting good contributions from all over their team. They've looked really good and getting good wins over the Toronto Raptors this week and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think with Brandon Ingram taking his game to the next level, the Pelicans definitely do have a shot at the playoffs, and right now they're looking like a really good team. So, number 10, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 9, I have a team that has dropped a few spots on this list, and that is the Indiana Pacers. They were 7th last week. They are now 9 this week. They dropped a bit this week, but they're still 4-2. They look like a really good team. but it's been a rough week for them because they lost T.J. Warren, who has to get surgery on a stress fracture in his foot, which is highly unfortunate. But they still got some pretty good wins this week. Getting wins over the Cleveland Cavaliers by 20, and just staying close with the Boston Celtics last Tuesday was a good, a pretty okay week for them. I mean, they lost to the Knicks, which is pretty bad, but I still think they've played a pretty good this season, and this bad week doesn't really warrant them dropping out of the top 10 just yet. But they definitely drop a couple of spots, and I have them at number 9. Number 8, we have a team that was 10th last week and who moved up 2 spots, and that is the Atlanta Hawks. Like the Suns out west, even when they lose games, they find ways to stay competitive. I know that loss to Cleveland yesterday was kind of tough, but they still had a pretty good week. They faced the Brooklyn Nets, where they won one game against basically a full strength Brooklyn Nets team. Obviously without Dinwiddie and all that, but they got a good win there. And even in that loss against Brooklyn last Wednesday, they were still pretty competitive. 145, 141, good contributions this week from John Collins, Trae Young, obviously, Clint Capella, who just came back from injury. It's been looking good, and even after a 2-2 week, I'm still very confident in this team, and just the way they've been playing. So they moved up 2 spots. Coming in at the number 7 position is a new team to the power rankings, and that is the Phoenix Suns. They have been competitive, like I said, and they were able to pull out wins when their stars have not played at their best. So, with that combination and just them having the best record, tied for the best record in the West so far, I think it's a pretty good start to the season for the Phoenix Suns, and they definitely have caught my eye and a lot of people's eyes around the league. So, yeah, good job to them. They are number 7 on my power rankings. Coming in at number 6 is a team that has dropped a couple of spots. I had them at number 2 last week, and now they dropped to number 6, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. They just got a lot of these losses are starting to pile up. Right now they're under 500 at 3-4, which is very surprising because they had a really good start to the season, and after this week they are coming off a 1-3 week. They just barely beat the Hawks and then got trashed by them the next night. And then even last night's game against the Wizards, there are just a lot of question marks around this team. The playmaking is definitely just not there right now. Kyrie Irving is a good player. Kevin Durant's a fantastic player. Obviously, they're both arguably top 15 players. But losing Spencer Dinwiddie was a big loss, and somehow they're really just being killed on the inside. I mean, the people who have been killing them throughout this week was people like Clint Capella on the boards, John Collins, who scored 30 points on them. Even though they beat them. And Thomas Bryant yesterday, who was 22 and I think 11, who hit the game winner on them as well, a game-winning dunk. It was just a rough week for the Brooklyn Nets, and they have these problems that are still kind of right out there in the open, and they definitely need to get those fixed. So they drop a few spots on my power rankings. At number 5, I have a team that I believe was kind of lower in my power rankings last week, but they had a good week, so they were able to bounce back. I have the Boston Celtics. They had a 3-1 week, and they've looked really good, honestly. They've looked really good. Obviously, these games are a lot closer than they would like to, but they're still pulling out these wins. And a lot of them, a big reason as to why they're playing so well is Jaylen Brown is just taking that next step. I've talked about him in the past, but I'm really liking the way he's playing. He's on his way to probably his first All-Star game. Obviously, there's not going to be an All-Star game, but he'll probably be named an All-Star this year if he continues the way he's playing. And I'm just liking, the young core of this Boston team. Jason Tatum playing very well. Jaylen Brown, I think that could be one of the top duos over the next 5 years or so. And I'm just very excited for this team. So at number 5, I have the Boston Celtics. At number 4, and staying in that number 4 position from last week, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. They've had a pretty up and down week. They 2 wins and 1 loss. I mean, those 2 wins were pretty impressive. I think combined they're 77 point deficit in their 2 wins. So they kind of have to stay near the top. They've looked really good. especially in those 2 wins, they think they both one they set the record for 29 threes in a game, and then that last one versus the Chicago Bulls, they hit another cool 22 threes. So they're looking really good. I still have these other teams kind of ahead of them, but right now they're playing at a very high level. So with Drew Holiday playing well, Chris Middleton, and Giannis just being Giannis. So I have them still at the number 4 position. Number 3, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. I've talked about them earlier, but they're looking like a real contender in the East right now. Especially, I like to fit up with a lot of players on that team. They hold the East's best record after 6 games, 5-1, and I'm just really liking the way Ben Simmons is playing, especially on the defensive end. Joel Embiid playing as like a top player in this league, and they're getting good contributions from Tobias Harris, who has probably looked as who's playing his best basketball in a 76ers uniform. Seth Curry giving you 16 points a game, Shake Milton off the bench giving you 12. I'm really liking this team, and that's why I have them very high so far. So at number 3, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. At number 2, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. I think they had a really good week this week, especially bouncing back after that 50-point loss to the Dallas Mavericks. And although they did lose to the Jazz, they still had some really good wins over the Timberwolves, the Blazers, and last night they had a 31-point lead on the Suns. Almost choked it, but they still were able to pick up the win. Paul George was fantastic this week, carrying me in fantasy, to be completely honest. But they're looking really good. Honestly, they're looking like the second best team in the league, in my opinion. And that's why I have them, really high up in these rankings. So at number 2, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. And at number 1, I feel like there's just no reason for them to drop this. I mean, 3 straight wins for this team, and they're still looking like the best team in the league by far. And that is the Los Angeles Lakers. They lost to the Trailblazers on Monday. Thank God, because I really needed that. My first victory in TV's, pick 'em. But yeah, they still look really good. They defeated the Spurs twice in a back-to-back, and then yesterday against the Grizzlies, they just took over the fourth quarter and just did what the Lakers do, just beat down on teams when they want to, and that's the scary part. When they want to, they're still have the best record in the West, and it looks like they haven't really even tried, and it's looking really good for them. Let's see if they're gonna be able to keep it going, because this regular season doesn't matter to them. It's all about what they do in the playoffs. So that's gonna be definitely interesting to see when we get there. But yeah, those are my power rankings. Let me know down below if you agree, disagree, and if I'm missing a team, definitely leave that down in the comments. But before we end today's show, I gotta give you my game of the week. And so far, I mean, last week I had a really good week. It started off with the Trailblazers beating the Lakers, so that was my first win of the season. And now, after that, I was able to, even though I didn't mention in the last Friday show, I was still able to do my pick'em for the weekend, which was the Wizards versus the Timberwolves, and the Wizards picked up their first win. So yeah, 2 wins right now, feeling really good. I think I'm 2-2, so I finally reached 500, and I have another game here for this week, which is gonna be very interesting. I have the Pacers versus the Pelicans, 2 teams who are off to great starts in the season, and it's a close line. We have the Pelicans at -1.5, so they have to win by 2 or more for them to cover. And I'm going to be taking the Pelicans in this game. I think that they have a lot of momentum, especially beating the Toronto Raptors, and I think they've shown me that they could play really good defense right now, and especially the way that they're doing it this year. And out of all the players on the court, I really do think that Brandon Ingram is the best one. And arguably, actually no, never mind. We have Sabonis is probably the second best player, but the Pelicans have the best player, and I think probably the better up and down roster. I think the Pacers will definitely make it competitive, but Oladipo, I don't know if they're gonna rest him or not. He probably should play, but that's still kind of up in the air. But I think that it's going to be a really good game, and I think the Pelicans are just going to continue with their momentum that they've had this season. I think they're going to pull it off. I need 2 or more points from the Pelicans. I'd be really sad if it's a 1-point game, but I think it's still going to be kind of competitive, but I think the Pelicans will be able to pull it off. because the Pacers will keep it competitive. They definitely will, especially with Sabonis on the inside. Obviously, losing TJ Warren sucks, but I think that they will still be able to compete. But I have the Pelicans covering today. But yeah, that is my game of the week. Hopefully, I can get over 500 for the first time this season, and hopefully, I can continue this winning streak. Because right now, I'm on a 2-game winning streak. Let's see if I'm going to be able to keep that up. But I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other great content. I'm going to have another YouTube exclusive video up this Wednesday. So, like I said, if you subscribe and hit the notification bell, you won't miss that. And again, on Friday, I might have a guest, I might not. We're gonna have to wait and see. But either way, I'm still gonna have a podcast out on Friday. And yeah, I think with the way the NBA season is going, I'm excited for what's to come. And here's to a good season, because right now it's been really cool, really entertaining. So let's hope they can keep it up. And thank you guys again for all your support. We reached 900 followers on Instagram right before the new year, so thank you guys so much for that support. Again, we're still over 2,000 downloads, so thank you for that as well. And I'm just excited for the future of this podcast. But I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'm going to be signing out, so take it easy, guys. Peace.